Hello, Flyers fans. Welcome to episode number 1 of Talkin' Fly Guys with Travis. I'm your host, Travis Ballinghoff. This podcast is going to consist of my analysis and opinions on the Philadelphia Flyers, as well as some unique interviews with players, writers, people who worked for the team, some experts in the field, and more. In this episode, I will be joined by betting expert Evan Bakota. We're going to discuss some possible bets you may want to make with the NHL season fastly approaching. But first, I want to discuss the Flyers preseason. Alright, so the Flyers just wrapped up preseason. They finished with a 2-3-1 record. Doesn't sound great, didn't look a whole lot better, but I'm not going to overanalyze anything that I saw in the preseason. Preseason is more so you want to get your hands in sync with your feet, and you want to develop chemistry with your new line mates. That's the biggest key. And also, something that we're starting to see now with more and more preseason games is that the home team will dress their NHL squad for their fans, while the away team usually saves their NHL squad for their home games. And they may dress one defensive pair and 2 NHL forward lines, but after that it's mostly AHLers. But let's dive into these specific games. Alright, so their first preseason game was against the Islanders. It was at home at the Wells Fargo Center, and it was great to see fans back again. As for the product on the ice, the Flyers did look rusty, and the Islanders had already played a preseason game, so they kind of got their legs going a little bit. It took the Flyers about a period to get going. Igor Zamula did have a nice night, but the Flyers did fall to the Islanders 3-2 in overtime. For the second game, it was kind of a bit what we talked about earlier. It was in Boston. The Bruins had their A team out there, and the Flyers, they had JVR and Frost and Farabee out there who looked really good together. But outside of that, they were clearly outmatched by the Bruins A team, and they fell in that game. The third game of the preseason, I thought was their best. It was at home against the Washington Capitals. They won 3-1, which doesn't sound like, they dominated, but they really did. They had a lot of zone time. They had a lot of quality chances. They played good. It was the Capitals B team, so you expect the Flyers should dominate the pace of play. They did. It was good to see. Their next game was against the New York Islanders. That one was in New York. The Islanders had their A team. The Flyers had their B team. Don't know if you're seeing a trend there, but like we mentioned earlier, home team always has that good lineup out there. And you could tell because the Flyers were severely outmatched that game. Besides the fourth line of Lawton, Thompson, and Aubé-Kubel, that was really the only NHL regulars we had out there, and you could tell we were outmatched. That was definitely the Flyers' worst game of the preseason. And then in the sixth and final game, the Flyers went to D.C. to take on the Capitals. This was by far the most important game of the preseason, and at this point in the preseason, it's pretty much A team versus A team, final tune-up before the regular season. Now, Carter Hart didn't start. It was Martin Jones, but besides that, the Flyers did have their regular lineup out there. The first period was pretty sloppy on both sides, a lot of neutral zone play, a lot of dump-ins. Capitals captain Alex Ovechkin actually got hurt on a fluky play. It was just a weird period. And then in the second period, the Caps, they took a 2-0 lead, and it was not looking pretty for the Flyers. After the Caps scored their second goal, the Flyers, it seemed like they got their heads out of their asses, and they started to actually play like a team. They controlled the rest of the second period. G scored 1. Cam Atkinson scored 2. One was a beautiful snipe down the left wing.
Takeaway, Atkinson makes the strip, 2-on-1 development. Atkinson fires, he scores!
And the second one was a bit of a knuckle puck that Samsonov couldn't get a good read on. The Flyers went into the third period up 3-2, and it was looking pretty good. And then in that intermission, I don't know what Capitals coach Peter Laviolette told his team in the locker room, but it did work. The Capitals dominated the Flyers in the third and won 5-3. It really could have been 6-3, but one of their goals got called back for offsides. It was not a pretty final preseason effort for the Flyers. Like I said, I try not to put too much stock in the preseason, but the defense looked bad, and so did Martin Jones, and it was the most important game of the preseason because it was pretty much A team versus A team. So now I want to talk about some observations I made throughout the entire preseason. All right, so some observations I made throughout the preseason. The team stood up for each other. That was something we didn't see much of last year. Anytime there was a scrum after the whistle, anytime there was a big hit, the Flyers were right in their opposition's face. That was good to see, especially because it's preseason. You don't always see that, but the guys were engaged, and that was great to see. The power play, the penalty kill, both units looked inconsistent. The power play, they'd have one good shift all game, and then they'd have 2 or 3 clunkers that led to some opposite momentum. And as far as the penalty kill, they'd have a couple good kills, and then they'd give up a goal like 10 seconds into the play. So both units are going to still need some work. Carter Hart looked really, really good. He was reading plays, tracking pucks. When he's doing that, he's on his game. He's making the hard saves look easy. The captain, 33-year-old Claude Giroux, he still looks like G. He's probably not going to put up 80, 90 points like he did in his prime, but he's still a damn good hockey player. Rasmus Ristolainen, he's banging bodies. He's hitting everything that moves. His physicality is as advertised. Derek Brassard, I think, has played very well. I was at training camp a couple of times, and I was like, wow, Brass looks really good. And that's kind of translated over into the preseason. I really liked his game. And the top unit, Provorov and Ellis, they look great together. You can tell they have some chemistry. Their heads are up. They're walking the blue line. They're getting shots on net. They look very good. Some things I'm nervous about, kind of just touched on it, the lack of center depth. Kevin Hayes is going to be out a little bit. Hopefully, Brassard can continue to play well, and hopefully Scotty Lawton can play his game, and they won't miss Kevin too much. And another thing that kind of worries me is Martin Jones. When he's been on the ice, there's been a lot of pucks go in the net. Not all his fault. Some bad reads by him, some defensive breakdowns. But either way, the puck's getting in the net too often when he's on the ice, and that needs to be cleaned up. Some things I want to see. If the power play continues to struggle, I really want to see Ristolainen net front on the second unit. It was something he did in Buffalo a couple years ago. It gives the team a different dynamic, a different look. Big body in front. Ristolainen's got some decent hands on him. He doesn't get enough credit for that.
Ristolainen, what a move for Ristolainen! He scored!
And also Morgan Frost. I talked about him a little bit earlier. It seems that the coaching staff wanted him up, but Chuck Fletcher wanted him to get reps with the Phantom, so they sent him down. If the center depth does lack, I would really like to see him up here sooner rather than later. All right, now we're going to jump into my interview with betting expert Evan Bakota. All right, joining me now from EB3 Media, betting expert Evan Bakota. Thank you for joining me this week.
I don't know if we'd call that expert, but it's good to be here, man. Glad to be here and talk some betting perspective.
All right, first episode, first guest. So let's jump right into it. The Flyers had a bad season last year. GM Chuck Fletcher came in, made a lot of off-season changes. How do you feel about the upcoming season from a betting perspective?
I think they made a lot of necessary improvements, especially on the defensive end. Carter Hart last year, you could say, struggled.
To put it lightly.
But, hey, they picked up a lot of key guys this year, and I really do think they have a decent chance to make the playoffs. You're looking at it from Caesars Sportsbook. They're offering them at plus 120 to make the playoffs. I do think that's pretty decent value.
Yeah.
I think they can do it. They're definitely going to be in the wild card hunt, at least.
Yeah.
I think they can sneak in there.
Especially with the whole division getting older, and really the only given to make the playoffs, I'd say, is the Islanders. Maybe the Hurricanes, but Capitals are getting older, Penguins are getting older.
I think this is a good spot for them to sneak in there. And again, last year, if you can get the Carter Hart from 2 years ago, you're looking at a team that can seriously make some noise. I think you kind of have to pick your spots with the Flyers, but I think after the first couple games they kind of get chemistry going. And I think they'll figure things out.
So opening night is Friday night against the Canucks. Are you playing that game?
I think I might. I don't know if I'm gonna necessarily take the Flyers right now. I'll see where if the line moves any. I believe right now they are
minus 150. Is that right?
150, 160, depending on the book you take. It's a little bit of a juice. I mean, not terrible, but the Canucks are just anemic on offense. So
yeah, we'll get to them in a bit.
we'll discuss my I don't even know what you want to call it for the Canucks, but basically they're not being bet on anymore for the foreseeable future. So, I think they got a good shot. They're playing at home, are they not? Or
yep.
So
in Philly.
We like that. I don't like that we got a lot of new faces, and the Canucks already have a game under their belt.
Yeah.
But then again, I hate to bet against the Fly guys, and the Canucks are blacklisted. So I do think there is decent value in a total. I do like the under in that game. I believe it is sitting at. Let me double check if it changed. Yeah, you're sitting at 6. I think an under. I think 5.5. I mean, if you get to 5.5, I wouldn't really go lower than that.
Yeah.
6 you can play with a push. But I think Carter Hart has a decent outing at home first game. Again, the Canucks on offense, minus that third period last night, they look lost.
Yeah, it's interesting because coming into the year, the Canucks' defense was their biggest issue. It's only one game, but you're right, that offense looked bad last night.
And Thatcher Demko is going to keep them in games.
Yeah.
I mean, you say your best penalty killer is your goalie, and I think that rung true last night for them. I mean, they were able to get to a shootout, and for what it was, they actually they looked competent for one period out of that game. But yeah, I think the total has some value. I mean, if you're feeling real homer, then you could take the Flyers on Friday. I have no problem with that. I wouldn't really touch the spread. Flyers -1.5. I as much as I love playing spreads in other sports, hockey, you're playing on either an empty netter or somebody not scoring an empty netter.
Yeah, them empty netters get you every time.
I mean, if you can get through regulation, and then you're like, well, now I can't do anything because either way, you can't win. So you're preying on an empty netter most of the time, or just a one-sided game.
Yeah.
Usually that's why I tend to stay away from spreads, unless it's a game where there's just one team that's going to win, and that's just kind of how it's going to go. So, I would take the under on Friday.
Interesting. Let's talk season long. Are there any players you like? Any specific players over under for goal totals, point totals?
I actually have a couple picks for the Vezina.
Oh, okay.
It's funny because you look at the odds and it's Vasilevsky and then everybody else.
Yeah.
Vasilevsky's coming up at plus 400 on Caesar Sportsbook. And then the next closest, you're looking at the guys like Fleury and all them, they're plus 1,000. Do you eat the chalk with Vasilevsky?
I would not. I would not.
I think that he is kind of in his own tier, and he has the best team in the league, arguably. But I do like Darcy Kemper at plus 1,400.
I like Kemper a lot too.
I think with the team he has in front of him,
yep.
Compared to playing with the Coyotes last year,
yeah,
you can't. There's only so much that guy could do. But now you give him a solid, a serious contender nonetheless in the West, and this dude's sitting at 1,000 less than the next guy up. Well, the chalk per se.
Right.
So yeah, I think Darcy's got a good shot. I mean, Vasilevsky, if you really want to eat that chalk, you can.
My worry about Vasilevsky is that they've had 2 long playoff runs in a row, and then they brought in Brian Elliott. Maybe Vasilevsky doesn't play as much as he has the past couple of years.
I could see that. I mean, you'll kind of see as the season goes on, right? Like how they use him, how much. I mean, if Kemper plays every night, he seriously should shoot up in value. Yep. I still think 1,400 is way too low. I think he probably should be at least 1,000 in that tier with the Flurries, and I think Robin Lehner's is somewhere in that realm too with Kemper. If you're gonna take the Vezina, I would rather have a guy that is on a serious contending team, right? Like as much as you want to take like Soros or somebody like that, like how much is Nashville really going to compete to the point where he's in contention for a Vezina? you're looking at a goals against like hovering around 2.
Yeah.
I do think I do like Nashville to make the playoffs.
Really?
They have super long odds. They're what, plus 210 to make the playoffs. If Saros is what he could be,
Yeah, Saros is legit.
if he feels that potential, I think they got a shot. I mean, I'm looking at it from a value point, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
because they lost some guys in the offseason. You hope. I mean, they got Phil Myers from Philly, and they're hoping that he can come in and be a stud. But they did lose Ellis. They lost Arvidsson. They're loading up on the top line with Forsberg, Duchesne, and Johansson. So
they're gonna have their work cut out for them. But we'll see. I think the value's there.
Yeah, I mean just 2 years ago they were serious.
Even last year or the COVID year, they made a little bit of a run there at the end. So yeah, I think as far as player awards, I'm primarily looking at the Vezina, Darcy Kemper plus 1400. I think that's the best value
really
on
good.
the board. Again, and I think the Predators to make the playoffs. I also like the Kings to make the playoffs.
I like the Kings as well.
I think LA's got a decent shot, and they're plus 250 at Caesars to make it. So I think you're looking at 200 plus teams in LA and Nashville, and the Flyers plus 120. Those are probably most of my futures. As far as the Cup, I like to wait a little bit. I want to see some numbers. I want to see how things progress as the season goes on. The Canadians last year, if you look at it, probably I want to say like a week before the playoffs, they were leading the league in Corsi 4. The statistic Corsi, the percentage for versus teams they play. They were right up there with the Avs. They were right up, and Nashville was in there too. A lot of the teams that you would think, oh well, they're not that good. Well, from a statistical standpoint, you look at Corsi and Fenwick and all those advanced stats. They can play, they can hang in some of the games that they shouldn't. So, again, I'd rather wait to see some data. The Avs are the favorite currently.
Yeah.
The Lightning are also at plus 700. I don't want to take the chalk on either one, not to start the season.
Nah.
Although, then again, that's probably the best value you're going to get if they do make the playoffs and they look like strong contenders to win. Those odds might move up a little bit, but I don't see much value in that right now. The Canes at plus 2,200, a little bit of value, but then again, you're also betting on them. Number one, to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, they also play in a pretty tough conference. Usually that's gonna be a crapshoot come playoff time. They might be fighting just to get in. So I'm gonna hold off on the Stanley Cup for now. Give it a little while, see how the season pans out, and go from there. You can't always take something off the bat, but again, if you like somebody, if you want to take the Flyers off the bat early, you can probably get them at a good value, or you could probably get them even better if they suck. It's.
Yeah, someone like the Flyers or even like the Kings, like we talked about, maybe it's better to get on them now than late.
Yeah, you want to find the value while it's there. You don't want to get it after the line moves because then you're losing out on money.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I'm looking at as far as the Stanley Cup is concerned. You want to go into the parlay.
All right, so let's set the scene. So last night, Evan texts our betting group chat that we have, and he's asking for picks. And he didn't take mine, which was smart. He's the betting expert.
That game was a pick'em, to be fair. It was 110 either way. So I was like, well.
So you take the Leafs over the Habs.
Yes.
You take the Capitals over the Rangers.
Yes.
You take
the Avs against the Hawks.
Yep, the Avs against the Hawks. And then the Ducks against the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Canucks over the Oilers. So the Leafs win.
Yeah,
over the Habs.
Leafs and the Caps off the bat, two boxes, good. And I played the Caps on a single as well, so that was easy. I played the Caps and the Avs last night as singles, and then I felt really frisky with the 50% profit boost on Caesar Sportsbook. This isn't a promotion for Caesar Sportsbook. This is just
no free ads.
This is just the book I've been using. But yeah, no, I had a profit boost. So the odds were honestly close to plus 4,000 because I put $25 on it, right? 50% profit boost to win 961. Quick rough math. That's a little bit less than 4. But yeah, I had the Caps and the Leafs to start in the 7 o'clock slate. Got both of those wins.
So then after they win, you could have made profit. You could have cashed out. I
could have taken my easy $20 or whatever they were gonna give me, and then I rolling into the 10 o'clock slate, and Trav's like, "You picked the Ducks." I was
that's where I was.
I was like, listen, if there's ever a night to take an underdog, it's definitely the opening night.
Yep.
And I mean, it wasn't even like they were crazy underdogs. They were like plus. I think I got them plus 140 or 130.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it wasn't steep odds.
Because I think the Jets are a cup contender.
I think they're very good.
And then the Ducks, they're a bit of an unknown just because of how many young players they have. Yeah, but the young guys popped off last night, and then Johnny Gibson kept them in for a while.
Kid's first NHL game came out and got and Gibby did his job, So and then I was like, well, okay, then we
go down to the final game.
Yeah, this fucking
where I think both of these teams are pretty even. Both have good forwards. Both defenses are kind of iffy. And then Mike Smith was pretty good last year.
He was a fucking world beater. Yeah. I don't know what the hell he was on yesterday, but dude, that guy was just...
You just kind of expect, all right, when's Mike Smith going to drop off? And he hasn't yet, and he stands on his head last night.
It wasn't yesterday. He was showing off yesterday. I mean, and to be fair, I mean, the Canucks, I thought that thing was dead in the water off the bat. I was like, oh, well, I thought the hardest part was going to be the Ducks winning, right? And then they go up 2-0. I was like, what the hell? And the Avs, I mean, they were dealing early. I mean, Chicago scored one.
Yeah, Chicago did come back a little bit. Yeah. It looked like Colorado was going to run them out of the building the first 10 minutes, but I mean, Chicago stuck in it. But then first 4 teams, we were looking good.
Right. I was like, all right, this has some serious legs. This could do something. It was at the point where, like, okay, well, the Avs are in control of this game. The Ducks are surprisingly in control. I don't know if I trust them to keep the lead they have, but if there was an opportunity to hedge, it was there.
So we're in really good shape, and then that 5th game, the Canucks go down 2-0 while everyone else is winning, and it's like, fuck this, we're done. Should have cashed out. We had a lot of, 20 to 960.
I don't even know if I really looked after they went down 2-0. It was more or less just utter disappointment when I saw them get scored on again. I was like, all right, you know what? It's whatever. We're just canning it.
But then we're all kind of keeping tabs, and then Canucks down 2-0. They have a serious push late in the 3rd period. End up tying it, go into overtime, tie 2-2, and then we're like, oh, we're all excited. This, serious parlay here, making over $900.
Yeah, went from down 2-0 and basically cashing out for a dime, and then they come back, they score 1. Okay, they still got a lot of ground to go, and then they score again with like 3 minutes to go. I was like, oh, here we go. And then it's just, it's one of those slow, painful deaths where...
They had a couple of good chances.
They really did. I mean,
Pedersen, Miller.
They had fucking Mike Smith, man. That dude was just playing out of his mind yesterday. I don't know what it was, but whatever he had for breakfast, keep eating it.
So then it goes to a shootout, and
they were.
You go to the shootout against the Oilers, and it's like, all right, we got to go against McDavid, we got to go against Draisaitl.
It was the inevitable. The overtime is where the underdog goes to die, so it's...
But then Demko stops both of them guys, and you're like, holy crap.
Yeah, right, and they scored, so they were up, and the Oilers just went through their best 2 shooters, and Demko just decided to... All right, I made my saves. I stopped the best 2. I ain't stopping anybody else. And then Nugent Hopkins puts one in. And somehow Mike Smith magically turns back into this world beater, and And then there go the Canucks. And then there goes the parlay. And there goes my night.
But hey, night ruiner. You're one goal away from $960. I mean,
and if this is a lesson to anyone out there, this is you hedge every single time. Even when they tied up the game, right? You go into overtime, those odds are probably even almost either way. The Oilers would probably have favored a little bit more, maybe like, minus 130 or 40, but like enough that should not deter you from throwing more money in so you can guarantee yourself a nice couple $100 profit.
Yeah.
Instead, I was like, well, hey, opening night, I already hit the singles. Just kind of let it ride, and it's fun. You like letting it go, just, all or nothing, right? Balls to the wall, and, well, we hit the wall. So, can't get discouraged, though. I mean, hey, opening night,
yeah. Opening night, you're one goal away from $960. I mean, you'll take that.
Well, I did cook up another parlay for tonight.
Oh, let's hear it.
We'll see how this goes.
What do we got in tap for tonight?
So, money lines, we're taking the Rangers.
All right, so the Rangers are playing the Stars.
Okay. And the Canes are playing the Islanders.
So you have Rangers and Canes.
I have the Kraken on the road against Nashville.
Okay.
And then here's where it falls apart. I'm taking the Kings.
Huh.
I'm taking the Kings tonight.
Well.
Plus 14-15 though.
Yeah, that's good odds.
Decent odds.
And it's
right?
it's in LA. It's in LA.
Taking two underdogs. Only one road team. Kraken on the road. We'll see. Actually, I think that line has moved a little bit. It's now plus 105 instead. I think it was plus 110 earlier. Kings are still sitting at plus 140. To be honest, I got to make it through the 7 o'clock games first. I mean, you really can't even worry about that. And I like putting the last leg at the late slot, the 10:30 slot, because okay, if you get through the 3.
Is Igor in that tonight for the Rangers? What the hell was that shit last night?
He better be. Hey, last night...
yeah, Igor is in that tonight.
Last night, that helped me out. I mean, that was... the Caps just feasted, and Ovi.
Yeah, your boy Ovi popped off in fantasy for
you. I think the Rangers got a real shot tonight. I know you liked them last night.
Yeah.
I think I think if they're actually going to put the starter in net tonight, granted it's game 2, the starter hasn't seen any ice time.
Yeah, because early in the year, it's kind of like, all right, well, the Rangers played last night, so they might be better in the first half of the game, but then they might get tired, where in the Stars, I mean, they haven't played a regular season game yet, so they might be rusty.
I think it's decent value on a home team. And I think, well, for the Rangers at least, coming off last night's game, they're going to want to put one in the win column.
Yeah.
And then I like the Canes, too, against the Islanders. I think the Canes, goaltending-wise, I think they upgraded this year.
Yeah, I like Freddie Anderson, especially out of that Toronto market.
And another home team, home opener. I'm going to take the Canes. And the Kraken, I don't really know how I feel about the Vegas game against them. I mean, they had some times where they looked competent, and then, again, like you said, you told me before, they just don't have an offense.
Yeah.
They're throwing Wenberg out there on the first or second line. What the hell's going on? But I think they can hang. They got a game, and they played Vegas the first game. So
yeah, Seattle had some chances right when that game started, and then Vegas scored a quick one, and then
and the Kraken came back there at the end a little bit, but at that point it was all but over. And I think Nashville's kind of in that same boat. I mean, they don't really have a whole lot sparking out at you offensively.
Yeah, if Nashville's first line doesn't score 3 goals a game,
and the total's at 5.5, so they're not expecting this to be a barn burn.
Yeah,
it's you're looking at a team that could probably win this game 2-1, 3-1.
Yeah, that's what I would expect as well.
I do like the Kraken on the road there to get their first official franchise win, whatever. I don't really care. And then you got Vegas and the Kings. Obviously, Vegas won their opener last night against said Kraken.
Yeah, that's another situation where they might be ready to go, and then the Kings are slow to start. But then as the game goes on, the tide turns. So maybe like Vegas is going to have to get out to a lead early if they want to win, because the Kings have a lot of young guys too. So
the Kings have always had their share of late game heroics.
Yeah. I could definitely see that tonight.
I think if they can hang
at home
for the value, yeah, we'll take a home underdog. Sure, why not?
Yeah, as long as they go into that game not down by more than one, I think they could win that.
So that's the four we're looking at tonight: Rangers, Canes, the Kraken, and the Kings in the late game. All four of those on Caesar Sportsbook combined to get you plus 14, 15
Do we know the
odds.
goalie matchup for that? Is that Laner Pedersen?
Oh, sidebar. Player prop tonight. Guess who I'm taking?
What game?
Eagles and the Bucks. We're switching gears.
All right. Quez.
Yeah, my boy
you gotta-
Quest Watkins.
You got to take the over on Quez Watkins receiving yards every single week.
Yes, I believe he has hit, depending on the book you take, and the line you get, however early you get into it. He's hit every week.
Right.
The books are not respecting our man Quez Watkins right now. He is just on a tear. Yeah, I mean he's getting max 5 targets a game. But he's catching the football.
Yeah, he makes the
and
most
he's getting
out
the
of it.
yards.
And 25 yards, is that what it is? Is that what it is again tonight?
No, tonight they're actually respecting him. They're giving him 40.5. So
I'd still take that because the Eagles are going to have to keep up with Brady.
Yeah, and I think with the Bucks down, their top 2 corners, Jamel Dean's going to play, but he was questionable all week. He did practice in full yesterday, but you know how the day before, that last practice of the week goes. It's usually just shorts and half pads.
Yeah.
So, but I think, I actually did get Quez over 2.5 catches. A little bit of juice. It was like minus 160. But I was like 2.5. He's had 3 catches every game. I was like, sure, yeah, give me that. The yards.
And Goddard's out. I mean,
and Goddard's out. I think he's got a pretty serious shot of getting it 3, maybe even before the fourth quarter hits.
Yeah. No Joe Mixons.
No Joe Mixons. Yeah, that was he couldn't even get 3 catches. He got 1. Did he have 1? He had 1 for 0 yards.
Yeah.
And I was like, great, cool.
And then he got hurt.
And then I am also taking Gio Bernard to get. I think his line. What did I get it at? 1.5 minus 150. I think he gets 2 catches. He's had 2 catches every game this year.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Against the Eagles, linebacking core.
Yeah, they don't really cover. I mean, even the run game's been bad this year, but
yeah, I think those are 2 solid bets. I also do like the Eagles to cover in this game.
What is it, minus 6.5?
Yes, it did move down.
The Bucks?
It did move down to 6.5. Was at 7 earlier in the week. If you couldn't get it at 7 and buy the hook, I would usually buy the hook to 7.5. That way you're covered. If they do lose by 7, you still win. I wouldn't buy it any more than probably 7.5 now. The lines moved down. Sprinkle the money line as usual. I really do think they can hang in this game. Short week. I really think that Brady thumb issue is more of an issue than they play it off as. That dude had his finger wrapped up all week. So we'll see. He's calm.
And when it's a short week, I forget what the exact stat was, but the home team dominates the away team on short weeks.
Yeah, and the other number I saw too was Brady's also, take it with a grain of salt because he's still Tom Brady, but he's 0-10 in his past 10 primetime games against the spread.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he hasn't covered a single primetime game in his last 10. So I don't really like looking at those long trends like that. Even if whether they're winning or losing streaks, because chances are they're gonna break it at some point.
Yep.
So
that's called their due.
Yeah, there's no mathematical equation for their due. I think the Eagles can hang in this game. The total is way too high. I think it's at 52 or something. I was like, what the hell? I don't remember exactly what the number was, but I probably hovering around 75% of the past 10 Thursday night games have all gone under totals of 52 or lower, or 53 or lower. Yeah, so I would probably take the under tonight and an Eagles cover if you wanted to combine those two. I think that's a decent play. But yeah, and remember, Quez Watkins, props, every week. Don't care what the line is.
Yep.
Take it, because he's good, and he plays. He might not play a lot. That's probably why the lines are always so low, because he doesn't get a lot of snaps, but when he's out there, Hurts has eyes for him. So I will gladly take the free money where I can get it. That's while it lasts. We'll see what Quez does tonight. I think he can do what we need him to do, but maybe not.
Right. Who knows? So takeaways from this segment: Darcy Kemper for the Vesna, smash that.
Yes, absolutely.
And Quez Watkins over on receiving yards every single week, no matter what the line is.
It's 40.5 this week. This is the highest it's been all year. Still think he gets it.
I do too.
I think he goes 6-0 in the year with his receiving props, but we'll see.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for joining me this week, Ev, and I'll see you next episode.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Evan, thank you for joining me this week, and to the listeners, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed, hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next time.